Hello again everyone, SMC here with some more crime scene goodness and a little makeup for you. Please consider subscribing if you like makeup and a little bit of morbidity to break up your day. Today's video I'm going to talk about some unrealistic expectations that you might be faced with as a crime scene investigator, as well as doing this makeup look, and then I'm going to take P to the corn pit all day. And I'm going to check back in at the end of the day to see how this held up to the heat, the humidity, mask wearing off and on. So it'll be pretty interesting. So come back and check it out. As always, crime scene stories can be sensitive, graphic, or disturbing in nature, and viewer discretion is highly advised. If you're having thoughts or feelings of hurting yourself or others, please get a hold of and talk to someone. Don't just post on social media. Don't just send them a text. Actually get someone who will listen to you speak about what's causing these thoughts and feelings. Talk to a family member, a friend, someone from your church, someone from your neighborhood. You can call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. You can call your non-emergency police dispatch line, or you can call 911. It is crucial that if you're having thoughts or feelings of hurting yourself or others, that you talk to someone about them before you end up doing something that you possibly regret and or can't take back. Now that the disclaimer is over with, stick around for a couple minutes and you can see this. While you're sticking around, maybe you should hit subscribe, maybe hit that notification bell. Thanks for hanging around. Unfortunately, I had to set things up a little bit differently because I'm getting ready so early. So I'm actually in the bathroom. I have some artificial light because it's still way too dark outside. I've already washed and moisturized my face, and now I'm just gonna set about getting ready with my primer. But today I figured I would talk to you guys a little bit about some unrealistic expectations a CSI is gonna run into. And sometimes that comes from a misunderstanding or lack of forensic know-how by the individuals making the request. Or sometimes, mainly, that's what it comes from. Or that they don't know what the lab can do or what would be a valid test, so on and so forth. So at one of the agencies where I worked, we got a lot of recovered stolen vehicles. Those would just be towed to an impound yard, and then the case officer could put in a request for processing, and we could go out to the impound yard and process the cars and call it good. And then they could be released to the victims or whatever was going to happen with that vehicle. And I remember one time I had a request to go out and process this vehicle. They had said they wanted to do DNA on a piece of chicken that was in the car. It's possible. I think we can all remember that home invasion not that many years ago, that they were able to identify the suspect by getting DNA off of a piece of pizza that he had eaten, or partially eaten. So it wasn't that strange to think, okay, well, I'll get this DNA. I'm going to turn on a fan. I hope it doesn't totally destroy the audio, but I feel like I speak loudly enough that I can probably speak over this quiet fan anyway. So the way it would work with these types of vehicle processing requests is the case officer would likely contact the victim and say, we found your car, here is what I'm seeing, like item-wise inside. Sometimes it might be drink containers or whatever, and I'm sure they said, oh, and there's some chicken in here. And the victim said, that's not my chicken. And that's why the chicken ended up on the request for processing. Pretty straightforward, right? I show up to process this vehicle. I do all my usual stuff, get my information. I'm filling out my note sheet. I'm taking photos. And all the while I'm keeping in my mind, like, this piece of chicken is supposed to be somewhere. So you have to be really careful when you're dealing with DNA sensitive evidence items because it's so easy to contaminate or destroy that type of evidence. You don't want to be breathing over it or sneeze or cough over it, or like really, since it's so fragile, you want to make sure that you're taking care of that before you do anything else. I see the chicken, and it's like one of those whole roasted chickens you can get at Walmart, like the entire thing in the plastic container, rotisserie chicken, and it has the black bottom with the clear dome on top. And this thing had been reduced down to just a chicken carcass of bones. There was really nothing definitive for me to test. And, you know, if had it have been this whole roasted chicken with just like a nice bite out of the back of it, then yeah, I could swab that bite mark. But this thing was just completely decimated. And so that was a pretty unrealistic request on the part of the case officer, because that's not happening. You know, there's no way for me to know what part of that chicken carcass has the suspect's DNA on it. So that was a no-go. I have also we had a firearm that was used in a murder attempted suicide. And the detective who was working on that case asked me, okay, well, let's swab it for DNA. Take a bunch of swabs of this and this and this. And I was like, whoa, a bunch of swabs? Yeah, like he wanted several swabs of this gun. And this is just a handgun. It's not a long gun. So there's not a ton of surface area. I was like, well, how about I do one swab near the muzzle area, and I'll do the other swab all over the rest of the gun. On the grip, on the trigger, on the back of the slide, and so 2 swabs total. And he's kind of looking at me like, why so few? And I said, well, you know, the more swabs I take, the more dilute that sample is going to become across all the subsequent swabs. And it's likely going to end up being below the threshold of detection or being below the threshold of being able to make a forensically identifiable profile. And since I explained it to him like that, he understood, and he said, do what you think is right. So that's what I did. And the reason for doing 2, for those of you who might be asking, is because aspects of the case, it was likely a very close or contact shot to the homicide victim. And so hopefully there would be some blowback from the victim onto the muzzle end of the gun. And then the shooter's DNA should be all over the trigger, the grip, the slide area of the gun. So that's why 2 different ones. I don't know whatever happened like with those results, which is often the case too. If you're thinking about going into crime scene or even forensic science anyway, like if you're working in the lab, yeah, you're going to know those results because you're the one who's reporting those results. But if you're working crime scene, you may not necessarily have visibility into where the case goes, you know, what happens, unless of course you're called to testify, and then you're probably going to know. But sometimes it just gets handed over to the detectives and away they go with it. I'd had another unreasonable request. This was a child abuse case with a young child. I don't even know if this child was 12 months. But they had been kind of manhandled and abused on a mattress and like kind of bounced off the bed, I guess. The attorney who showed up, so this was a pretty big deal when you have an attorney showing up at your crime scene, wanted the mattress to be collected. And it's kind of like, the entire mattress? Yes. And it said, you know, evidence, they're going to be pissed when I show up with this whole mattress and try to submit it. And of course the attorney doesn't give a shit. It's like, all right, you want it, you got it. But in my head, it's like, I don't know of any forensic testing that they could do to determine like how hard the mattress was or how much of an injury the mattress would cause by like knocking someone down onto it really hard. And that was kind of what I was hoping to relay to the attorney. I guess they figured if it was possible to do any sort of testing at all, they wanted it collected. Most people aren't just throwing away mattresses from their houses anyway. Again, I don't know whatever happened with that case either, but I do know that evidence wasn't very happy about getting a whole mattress to have to deal with. That becomes evidence's problem, not ours. I'm doing pretty good here with this nice red eye. I really love this NYX Warm Neutrals palette. It's just like my favorite thing. It's my go-to almost every single day. And I have some other palettes that are pretty high end in my opinion. So that says a lot that this one is so favored over the rest. But yeah, I'm pretty sure in any profession you're going to have unrealistic requests from your boss or just from whoever. But so it's really kind of laughable when you're starting to get them in crime scene, because I mean there's only so much that we can do. And there's only so much that the lab can do. And I feel that sometimes the parties involved just neglect to remember that there's a whole nother component that, you know, the lab has to be able to do something with this evidence that we're giving to them. If there's no testing method, or if it hasn't been broadly approved by the scientific community, that's when you start running into issues of like, oh, this is fake science or pseudoscience. Nobody's doing it that way. And you're trying to admit this into court, you know, and depending on the case type, like that could be somebody's freedom, or that could even be their life if you live in a capital state that is on the line based on these tests that are done. And that's why you hear about, oh, that's pseudoscience, so we're not accepting that in this courtroom, because you can't just have one person willing to do an examination and try to say like, yep, that's scientifically valid because I say so. You know, it takes the entire forensic scientific community at large to agree that that technique is a valid technique. I'd love to hear about some of your unrealistic requests that you've gotten from work. Or maybe you're a boss. Maybe you're the one who's made some of these unrealistic requests. Tell me about those too. Did anybody change your mind, or did you just stick to your guns and that was the request? You wanted it done, and so you had it done, and then what was that outcome like? Did you have whatever testing or, you know, what you wanted done? Or was it just something that you requested that you had your subordinate do, and then it turns out in the long run that it was kind of dumb? Tell me those stories too, please. Today I'm actually going to do a little test because we are going to the corn pit. So I'm going to be outside right at the height of the hot and humidity with like no shade hardly anywhere, and I'm going to see how well my look holds up to the outside elements. I will be wearing a mask sometimes. I mean, this thing we're going to is outdoors and it's a really big venue. There are like pony rides and rides on the combine and stuff like that where you do have to get in line. There is a food area where people tend to kind of group up, and I am going to put my mask on in those areas. So I'll have the heat and humidity coupled with the mask wearing to see how bad my makeup deteriorates. I'm trying to think of some more unrealistic requests. I'm fairly lucky in that my education was really rigorous. I'm able to articulate well kind of the reasons behind why we shouldn't do something. Most of the time, I mean, with the exception of that mattress, I have been able to articulate my point and have it be well received by the requesting officer or detective to where they're like, yeah, okay, let's do it the way you just said. I'm not just, trying to get my way just because. Like, I'm providing legitimate reasons behind, especially, like, for instance, with the swabbing of that gun. I wasn't just like, no, I don't want to take several swabs just because I'm lazy, because I'm categorically not. I wanted to actually be retrieving a sample that was going to be useful. I've been doing some color correcting on these red spots, although I feel like as soon as I put my foundation on, the brush just kind of wipes all that green away. But I color correct with a little bit of this green just to help try to counteract all the red. I guess that's what happens with a face kind of as pale as mine. You just look really red. Like I said, I got up early. And this is especially not a flattering camera angle, but I have my whole setup here on the sink, but you can really see that my eyes are puffy underneath. So I'll probably go a little bit extra with this. I mean, really, I feel like, oh, it's just my face, because I don't know that it's ever not looked like that. Maybe if I had a really long vacation where I had no stress at all, these might go away and I would look so much better. Who has time and money for that kind of stuff? Not me. And probably not any other crime scene investigator you ever talk to. Ever. In the history of the science. I'm going to go off camera and do mascara and a quick black eyeliner, and then come back on for my foundation and everything else. Alright, now I am back with a simple black eyeliner and some mascara. There was also something I've been doing that I forgot to do on camera last time, was that I put a little bit of concealer here. I don't want to get too close because then it's going to go out of focus. But that I just make this line of my eyeshadow. I straighten it out. Now for my normal face. I tried a couple times without putting any moisture on my brush, but then I felt like the product did not go as far as I would like it to, and now I'm back to putting the moisture on. When it comes to the face, I'm using the same amount of makeup as I typically would, like if I was going to work. So just because it's a experiment day, I'm not cheating and using less or anything. But now I'm just going to speed up through the rest of this part until we get to contouring. Alright, my face is done with that foundation, powder, and now I went in with a little bit of concealer where some of those spots were showing through. I touched up the tiniest bit right here, because I've noticed that when I do that nice sharp line with the concealer, that it kind of looks like it goes in. I'm kind of exaggerating with the point of this brush, but so I just kind of added a tiny bit of color here and here. And now contour time. I've been contouring every day, so I feel like I'm getting better and better at it with all this practice. I'm definitely trying to keep it to the edge of my face because, like I said, I've been wearing this every day. And every day it seems like it's getting warmer and warmer toned, in my opinion, and I really don't like that. I'm wondering if I actually had the ability to just make a contouring powder and really have it be cool toned, like with some gray. And would that look strange? Is that why nobody does it? Like, why are they, even the reputedly cool tone ones, still sort of warm, or at least warm in my opinion? Maybe I'm just weird and I want to have a Dracula face, but if that's what I want, I should be able to get it. And keep that darkest one way back here by my ear. Because of all of them, I really feel the darkest one appears the warmest. But it could just be the contrast on my ghastly skin. That darkest one is the one I use under my chin as well, which is probably good because that's the color that I use the least, so it'll last the longest. The lightest and medium I use the most of each day on my cheeks, so those will run out first. Since I put my mask a lot under my chin, I think this all just gets wiped off into my mask, but maybe not. I will put a little bit under my lips. Give the appearance of a bit of a poutier mouth. That's good. I might go in with a little bit of this medium on the sides of my nose. I don't think I'll ever have enough money for a nose job. And I also saw that they have some plastic surgery they can do to remedy your resting bitch face. So maybe that's what I would spend my money on instead of just a nose job. But maybe if I could find a doctor who would do like a double pack at a discount. But until that day, this is as much nose job as I get, unfortunately. You could probably put a little bit of color here. This is the darkest one again. I'm really trying to not use too much. It got a little bit heavy on that side, so I'm going to try to blend it in as best I can. And then try to make this side match. Good enough for what I'm doing today. A little bit of blush. I've been putting that right, you can see where my contouring is, so I try to put the blush right here on that line between the contouring and just the foundation. I feel like that helps to make that line go away. See, now it's not so obvious. And it makes that transition better. Could be that this powder brush is just helping to blend it in, whatever. I really like the result. Now I've got my highlighter. I've been going a little bit heavy with that lately, because I'm really trying to give myself a look of some nice cheekbones. I've lost like 35 pounds already, and my face is definitely slimmed down. Well, I say already. I've lost 35 pounds since late May of this year. I still have a ways to go, but I'm really trying to accentuate how I'm happy with my face looking slimmer. Not that it was ever totally round or anything, but it definitely, you could tell, was bigger than this. Some highlight right on the bridge of that nose. I'm sweating a lot, but I'll try to put some right here. Wonderful. I bought this cute little lip balm yesterday. It doesn't do anything special, it's just a dark pink. But it feels pretty good. And that's that. Thanks for hanging out. Consider subscribing if you like crime scene stories and or makeup. And I will be back later to see how this fared after going to the corn pit all day. So have a great rest of your day. Stick around for a few minutes and you can hear how this held up to all the fun and excitement and elements today. And I will speak to you soon. Bye. Hey again, everyone. Now I have spent all day outside and sweating and standing around and in blowing wind and sand, and I sprayed a couple different times with sunscreen on my face. I am actually really impressed with how the makeup has held up. Also wearing masks too. You can see I got a little, despite the sunscreen, I'm a little red along my hairline, which is typical, but yeah, that did pretty good. So, all in all, a successful makeup day, and I will talk to you guys again next week. Bye.